Michael Buerk, who's been at the BBC longer than I've been on this planet, clocking up a whopping 31 years as the presenter of the BBC's ethical issues show on Radio 4 called The Moral Maze. And before that, as a newsreader. Well, he's come out with some pretty rare and robust remarks on his employer, the BBC. He says that in some parts of the BBC, more and more is being put off limits. And he's explaining that things cannot be said. Freedom of speech is seriously under threat, he says. He says he wonders how long the BBC will stick with his Moral Maze programme, and that Radio 4's yearning to connect with youth and increasingly woke editorial choices put it at odds with its listeners. Moral Maze's success was that it's a place where the unsayable gets said, right? Increasingly we hear, "Oh, you can't say that." Back in the days in which Moral Maze was first broadcast, I dare say that if you disagreed with someone, you could have a frank and reasonable discussion with them, using the tools of debate and speech, and with them you would reach conclusions on topics. And you might decide that you still disagree with someone and walk away, and that's that. And you don't go about trying to cancel them. You don't go about tweeting about how offended you are and all the rest of it. You would just get on with your life. Now, Buerk isn't alone in coming to this view about the BBC. The former Labour Party Home Secretary David Blunkett recently spoke via the Daily Mail of how he, who relied on Radio 4 as a blind man, relying on radio as his source of entertainment and source of news and all the rest of it. He actually called Radio 4 his favourite source of news and entertainment, but now he actually says it's become so determined to address multicultural diversity, gender issues and identity politics that it forgets about broadcasting to the whole country and not just a fashionable few streets around Islington. And I think that's right. The BBC these days is quick to cancel its commentators. Look at the cricket pundit Michael Vaughan. The BBC quickly chucked him when he was accused of racism. It wasn't so much innocent until proven guilty, folks. It was goodbye and good luck as soon as the allegation was made. Now, you see this, and I reckon it boils down to the fact that social media storms and teacups far too often influence the BBC, far too often persuade the BBC that something must be done, that they can't say this or that they can't offend this person or that person, and they can't risk cancellation by the wokerati. And it doesn't help, of course, that the BBC is almost exclusively staffed with London-dwelling university graduates. It waxes lyrical about diversity, while I'm afraid to tell you that the only diversity problem that the Beeb has is the lack of diversity of thought. And ultimately, right, I think the BBC has had its day, right? Look at the figures yesterday from GB News. Farage Farage managed through his Trump interview to beat the BBC and Sky News. And it's no surprise to me, right? Would the BBC dare do an interview with Trump? Would they dare sit down with the former president of the free world? No, they'd be terrified that he'd say something that they fundamentally disagree with. And that's where the problem is. That's where I think we've got to as far as our national broadcaster is concerned, where speech and debate, you can have these laudable things as long as you don't say the wrong thing. And then they're rendered pretty damn useless. That's a sorry state of affairs for us to be at, for a licence fee that we're all coerced into paying if we want to watch live television and all the rest of it. It strikes me that the BBC really has had its day, and even those who have relied on the BBC all their lives, or those that have worked for the BBC longer than I've been on this planet, are starting to recognise it. And I think it won't be too long before the whole of this country starts to recognise it too.